And there were in the same country shepherds, abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them. And the glory of the Lord shone round about them. And they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not.
What's up, Swap? It's Tyler here. Hey, happy December. Christmas is right around the corner. We are so close to celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. But hey, I have a question for you. Actually, it's more of a little assignment. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about 400 years. 400 years. 4 centuries. 400 years. What could happen in 400 years? What are the time frames? Like, how many lifetimes is that within 400 years? It can be a little overwhelming to think about. To give you a little perspective, the United States is only 244 years old. So 400 years, that's a long time. In the Old Testament, the last book in the Old Testament is called Malachi. And Malachi was a prophet, and a prophet's job was to speak the words for God. So God would give them the words to speak, and they would bring it. Sometimes it was judgment, sometimes it was blessing. A lot of times it was warning the people about if they walk away from God, these are the kind of things that will happen. And so God, throughout his history in the Old Testament, would send prophets, and prophets would come in and they would speak to the people, and sometimes the people would repent, and other times they would turn away. So let's go back to 400 years. Why did I ask you to think about 400 years? At the end of the book of Malachi, Malachi was the last prophet in the Old Testament. There was a period of 400 years where God kind of went silent for the Jewish people. After 400 or after tons of years of hearing from God and God sending people to speak, there was a 400-year period of silence. No prophets were sent. The Israelite people spent time in captivity, and then they went from captivity into a different set of captivity, and they lost their traditions, and they lost their way of life, and the things that they held dear and that they valued all were either destroyed or taken away from them. And so there was this season in Israel that it could be really easy to look at and go, man, they had to have been weary. As I think about this weary world, or the Israelite people in the 400 years of captivity and of silence from God, I can't help but think about our circumstances today in 2020. Now, listen, okay, I know that we have not been conquered by outside nations or anything like that, although that would be a little 2020 if that were to happen. But things in our world have changed. School has changed. The way we go about life has been disrupted. We have gone through difficult things in our world, and we have political division, and we have racial division, we have division in our families. And if I'm completely honest, this is a really hard time, and I'm weary, and I'm tired. So in a world where it feels like it's maybe going crazy, or that Satan just always seems to be winning, how can we rejoice? How can we find joy in the dumpster fire that kind of is 2020? Where do we find the ability to rejoice in a weary world? Here's the truth that I want you guys to hear from me tonight. In the midst of a weary world, in the midst of the craziness, we as Christians can find hope, because our hope is not in our circumstances. We don't find it in our circumstances. We find it in a person, and that person is Emmanuel, which means God with us. We find it in Jesus. So after 400 years of silence, all of a sudden, like a shot of hope in the dark, God sends his son Jesus to this earth as a baby to come and to live on this earth, to be God with us. Emmanuel. He sends us Jesus. Listen, Jesus wasn't a prophet. He wasn't a concept or an idea. Jesus was God with us. Our weary world went from silence to hope in Jesus, God with us. Listen to this passage I want to read to you. This is John 1, 6 through 14. So the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He came into the very world that he created, but the world did not recognize him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him. But to all who believed in him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. They are reborn, not with a physical birth resulting from human passion or plan, but a birth that comes from God. So where do we find hope in this weary world? We find it in Jesus. We find it in the fact that God loved us so much that he had this plan that he sent Jesus to live on this earth, to dwell among us, to be God in flesh among us, and he lived a perfect life, didn't sin, so that he could be the payment for our sin on the cross. That cross that we deserve to die on, Jesus took our place, and then he rose again so that when we put our hope, when we put our trust, when we put our faith in him, we can have life, just like it talks about here in John. We can have new life. We can be made new. We can be reborn. That is the hope that we celebrate in the midst of a weary world. So swap as we head into this Christmas season, and we maybe are feeling weary and we're feeling tired, and listen to me, that's okay. God understands our weariness. He understands our tiredness. He doesn't look down on us because we're exhausted by what 2020 has brought. But we can have hope. Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Then Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." We can rejoice in the midst of a weary world because our circumstances don't dictate our hope, but where we place our hope dictates it, and we place it in Jesus, in who he is, in what he did, in the fact that we can trust him for salvation. That is the place where we find hope. It doesn't mean that our circumstances always necessarily will change. We'll still go through hard things, but we can face them knowing that we are not alone and that God is walking with us. And here's the beautiful thing. As we live out this truth, that even in a weary world, we can have hope that's found in Jesus, people will take notice of that hope. They'll see us living with this different kind of joy that can only come from outside of circumstances. It's not a happiness, it's a joy that comes from deep inside of us of knowing Christ. And so, swap, listen, in the midst of a weary world, as we're sitting in the craziness, place your hope in Jesus, because in him is where we can find joy. In him is how we rejoice. Merry Christmas. Love you guys. See you later.
And there were in the same country shepherds, abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them. And the glory of the Lord shone round about them. And they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not.